In this video, we'll be talking about diphthongs. In this classification of speech sounds that we saw earlier, with speech sounds phones being divided into segmentals, segmentals being divided into vowels and consonants, and then vowels being made of single vowels or diphthongs. We talked about single vowels in the last video. In this video, we'll talk about diphthongs. And of course, there's all these other ones that we'll get to eventually: consonant, stress, pitch, tone, intonation. Okay, monophthongs versus diphthongs. Monophthongs is just Greek for one vowel. Diphthongs is Greek for two vowels. We saw in the last video that standard American English has 11 cardinal vowels and one little vowel, schwa, that the other vowels become when they're unstressed. Not 5. 5 is a different thing. A lot of people would say, oh, English has 5 vowels. 11 is a lot, actually, in terms of the world's languages. And we also actually have even 3 more things which we would call vowel sounds. They may not be single vowels, but we have 3 more diphthongs. So English has 11 vowels and 3 diphthongs, American English. British English is a much more complicated picture. They have far more diphthongs than American English has. So a diphthong is simply a vowel that starts in one place in the mouth and ends up in another place in the mouth. One of the diphthongs that we have in standard American English is I. Sometimes you'll see it written with that letter J at the end. That would be a strong I with a real Y at the end. But most of the time, especially if there's a consonant following it, it would be I. A, and then that little dotless I, which is the high front lax vowel. So a word like time, it starts at I and ends at I, time. So that movement from to sweeping through the stuff in the middle is what's called a diphthong, time. And in English, a lot of times these diphthongs are indicated with that silent E at the end of the word. Another diphthong we have is cow, which could again be a full W sound like cow with a W, but most of the time it's just A to that hook-shaped vowel, A, H. So it would be cow, ow, ending at that ow. So we have I, ow, and the other one we have is oi, which can be again oi with a ya, or oi if you don't have that full ya at the end. So boy, oi. It starts out at that open O, and ends at that dotless I, boy, time, cow, boy. So those are the 3 diphthongs American English has. And actually 3 diphthongs is very manageable. There's lots of languages that have far more than that. One way to test if something is a diphthong or not is that it's 2 vowels but a single syllable. So I could say bow and the word in, bowin. Bow would kind of have that all sound, boin, bowin, bow-in. Like this wall is starting to bow in. That would be 2 syllables, but the word Boyne, which is a city in Ireland, has only 1 syllable, Boyne, because the oi is put together. So the only difference between Bowen and Boyne is whether it's 2 syllables or 1, and in Boyne it's that diphthong, that oi diphthong. Or ma-in, like, hey, call ma inside. Ma-in, ma-e, a-e. I've got that transition, it's in 2 syllables versus mine, which would be just put into 1 syllable, and that's the diphthong made of those same 2 vowels. So this is how that would look in that trapezoidal vowel chart. We have I, oi, and ow. Other languages, of course, have diphthongs too. In Russian, all of the diphthongs start at some other vowel and end up here in the tops. You can have oi, I, I would be here, a. So all of them are diphthongs which end in this place. American English has 1 diphthong that ends somewhere else over here. So we can already see English has a terrible mismatch. So when people say that English has 5 vowels, what they mean is that there's 5 vowel letters, A, E, I, O, and U. And again, the fact that they're in these little pointed brackets means that we're talking about letters, not actual sounds. That's the clue that we're talking about the graph, the letter, not the actual sound. And these 5 letters are all we have to try to write all of these different vowels that English has. See if you can think ahead of me what this would be, and then I'll say it. So what is this? A, e, I, o, a, u, I, ow, oi. So a, e, I, o, a, u, I, ow, oi. To be an English teacher, it's actually good that you can recognize these vowel sounds, the 14 sort of vowels that English uses, and this one sort of quasi-vowel, because vowel distinction becomes important, especially if you're teaching an American accent. British, there's even more sounds than this. It's a much more complicated vowel system than American. One interesting little fact about when we think of a Southern American accent or a Southern drawl, I like to bring this up when we talk about diphthongs. I used to teach in South Carolina, and I had a lot of students who had what we call a Southern drawl. Why the word drawl? It kind of makes it sound like you're drawing out something or you're holding something out longer. If we think of this sort of stereotypical Southern saying, it's about time y'all came back, or if I were going to say it in my American accent, that's what it would be. It's about time y'all came back. So these green sounds are diphthongs and the red ones are monophthongs. If I'm a Southerner, I would say, it's about time y'all came back. So actually everywhere where in a Northern American accent, almost everywhere, that you had a monophthong, so here, 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 in Southern accents you would get a diphthong. And where you have a diphthong in a Northern accent, ow or I, you actually have a monophthong in Southern American English, about time. And this is where that notion of drawl comes from. Rather than having 2 different vowels, a vowel that starts in one place and ends in another, actually, you just have a vowel that stays in one place but for twice as long, covering that same amount of time. This is where that notion of drawing comes back, and where people sort of get this idea that, Southerners talk slow, which is a stereotype. It's not exactly true, but it's an effect of this switching of the monophthongs and the diphthongs. Now, English, we said, has 11 cardinal vowels, monophthongs, and 3 diphthongs. Mandarin Chinese, it's actually the other way around, 11 diphthongs and 5 monophthongs. The monophthongs are I, U, U, and A, and then this vowel is kind of like in English, the schwa, where it's just a reduction. So something like the D. It's so unstressed that it gets pronounced as the schwa. We can see that, where English had only 3 diphthongs, Mandarin Chinese has a lot. There's yue, ye, ya, wa, wei, like hui, or shui, like water, wo, like wo shi, wo shi, you, or this is sometimes actually yo. It sometimes ends up down there like qiu, o, ow, I, and a. So there's lots of kinds of diphthongs that you have to master, and it can be sometimes hard for English learners of Mandarin to make all of these distinctions when they're used to only having 3 real different diphthong sounds. Estonian is an interesting language. Estonian, like English, has a very crowded vowel space. They have these unrounded, rounded contrasts, I, U, A, E, A, U, O, E. Like this, we saw that vowels also in Mandarin, and A. In addition to that, they have vowel length. So vere, this little 1 dot at the end means it's a super short vowel. Vere means of blood. Vere, with a longer e, this kind of length, the 2 dots means it's drawn out, would mean of the edge. Vere, where it's really long, would be you roll, like a command for, hey you, roll over. Vere. Then like ice, yeah, with a long a, or ard would be edge with a long a. And if you want to talk about the edge of the ice or the place the ice ends, you would actually get a quadruple length vowel, yard, because it's a combination of the word for ice and the word for edge. So it's actually got 3 of these length marks. It's a super long e. And then if you look at their diphthong system, this is crazy. So you have in this row the starting vowel and the place that it ends up, and there's all of these different diphthongs in Estonian. It's a it's a language that relies heavily on its diphthong system and its vowel system. It already has a lot of vowels that can have 3 different lengths, and then all of these different diphthongs. So it's a very vowel-y language, and that's something you notice when you listen to Estonian. So in both American and British English, tense vowels tend to have a kind of off glide. They actually are longer than what lax vowels are. So remember the tense vowels of American English we talked about, E, A, U, and O. And so because E, A, U, and O tend to end up with E and A have that Y sound at the end, and U and O have that W sound at the end, a lot of times English learners aren't used to putting that off glide, E, A, U, O. So instead of putting that off glide, they just make a long vowel. They use that vowel length strategy that we saw in Estonian. So really, if we were being technical, most of the time American English speakers would say E, I, A, O, A, U, U. So the off glide makes the tense vowels sound longer. So what learners will do instead of making a distinction between E and I in terms of the place in the mouth, they'll make a distinction between length. Heat, turn up the heat, I heat you. He, eh. So something like bait for fishing, instead of saying bait, they'll say bait. And then I bet you won't do that. So it's actually the same vowel. I fish with bait, I bet you won't come. But they use the length difference instead of using the difference in place plus this off glide to distinguish between these 2 vowels. Even sometimes they'll do this with the pair a and ah. They'll hear a as if it's a short ah, and then the regular ah will be longer. So hat and hot, instead of saying hat, hot, they'll say hat, hot. I put on my hat. It's hot outside, so they'll make that longer. British English loves diphthongs. So I said standard American English only has 3, but in British English you have a full A, I, oi, ow, o, goat, where English have an O with the off glide of a W, they would say goat. Goose, rather than having an off glide, is just a long U. And then because R's aren't pronounced after vowels in British English, they're replaced with this little schwa, so you get these schwa-y diphthongs, nia, square. I'm terrible at it. Instead of north being orth, it's north, pure. And instead of nurse being nurse, it's nas. Obviously my British accent is terrible, but you can see that there's some more diphthongs and the vowel system is quite different if you want to have a British accent.